and welcome to the Love How Deep podcast with Brian and Heather Mayer. Our purpose is to equip married couples like you with resources that rely on the transformative power of God's Word to strengthen your relationship.
Hey, thanks so much for joining me. This is Brian Mayer, and I am one of your hosts on the Love How Deep podcast, and I am doing this episode on my own today, and there's good reason for that, and that is because I want to specifically talk to just the guys or the husbands. And so if you are a wife and you're listening, you don't necessarily need to turn this off, but just know that this is going to be mostly for your husband. And if you do happen to want to listen as a wife, don't take down notes and be, jabbing your husband in the side as, you think about some of these things that I've said, but just sit back, pray for your husband. But husbands, I want you to listen to this episode. I want you to take action. And I want to say that the inspiration from this episode really has come from a group that I am now leading. I'm leading it's an 8-week study on how to be a better husband, and it's based upon a study put out by a guy named Dave McLean, and it's been a fantastic study. I'll put a link to the book that he has written. It's called the Wholehearted Men series, and specifically the one that I'm doing is Becoming a Wholehearted Husband. But I will say that's the inspiration. I'm not necessarily taking what he's saying in this study, because I really want this to be my own. I want the information that you get from me today to be from my own experiences, but I want you to know that there's also all kinds of great resources out there, like the one that I just mentioned, that again, where I'm getting the inspiration from. And I'm having a fantastic time with these guys. There are 6 guys in my group, including myself, and I think what we're doing is just producing a lot of wisdom between all of us, things that are said that, like I haven't even really thought about. Like, for example, I've got one guy in my group that has talked about, he's been married for decades, and he pretty much says whenever they're out and about, he always opens her car door for her. And that is just the most amazing, sweet gesture I think I could imagine of in a marriage and a relationship. And it's something that I don't do very often. I will occasionally do it, but I typically will do it like if we're in an area maybe that's not as nice, or maybe it's darker out, or it's a little bit of a dangerous situation. Sometimes I will, but I'll be honest, I don't do it all the time. So anyway, it's things like that that make you think twice about what you're doing. And so I just think it's been a fantastic experience. I've really enjoyed it, just kind of sitting back, and the way I've really led this group is I just look at myself as a facilitator. I'm not a leader with just spewing all kinds of amazing wisdom, which I don't even really have anyway, I don't think. But even if I did, I kind of wanted to just let this group, I wanted to understand the wisdom that the other guys are bringing in. And so anyway, so that's the inspiration for today's episode. But I do have I would say 5 different points I want to talk about when it comes to being a better husband. And the first one I want to talk about is loving unconditionally. The Bible encourages us as husbands to love our wives as Christ loved the church, sacrificially, unconditionally, to show love and kindness in all circumstances. And I'll be the first one to admit, again, sometimes my tongue or sometimes my attitude gets the best of me, and it does not appear that I am loving unconditionally. And love, of course, God's love, it's all about an action. It's not a feeling. And so really that's how we're supposed to model things. And so I want to be able to love unconditionally, not only in my heart, but in my actions. And I will say, the entire time that we've been married, I have actually loved my wife unconditionally in my heart. Like, I've always felt that, I've always had that feeling, but I've not always acted upon it appropriately. And so that's something that I would encourage you to be better with. Like maybe you do say, well, of course I love my wife. I mean, why wouldn't I? Well, again, do your actions show that? Do they point to that? And it's really important that if they don't, that you get that shored up, because after all, it's really the outward, I guess, showing of what we say, what we do, that other people, that our wives are going to see. So that's extremely important. And I want to read to you Ephesians 5:25, which is the basis for this tip, so to speak, for you. And in Ephesians 5:25, it says that husbands, love your wives just as Christ loved the church and gave himself up for her. 26 says to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, which I'm going to mention that here in just a bit as well, which is an extremely important thing to remember. But loving unconditionally, that is tip number one. Tip number two is leading with humility. Husbands, you are called to lead your families with humility. And what does that mean? Well, that means putting the needs and interests of your wives above your own. A humble and servant-hearted approach fosters a harmonious relationship. And what I'm talking about here, this doesn't necessarily mean that you constantly just have to cave in, you have to give in to what your wife wants and what she does. Of course not. But a large percentage of the time, I would encourage you to think about that. What might make my wife happy? I mean, I'll say from personal experience, it's very easy when my wife says, hey, would you like to go out and get a burger? If I'm not in the mood for a burger and I'm in the mood for pizza, my first response is going to be, nah, not really. I'd rather go for pizza. And, of course, it's fine to give your opinion and to make your opinion known, but there's occasions where maybe I could take a breath, maybe I could think about it for a minute and say, you know what, burgers are good, and if this is going to make my wife happy, then yeah, let's do it. And we're not talking about doing this with resentment. It's like, yeah, well, fine, my wife wants this, fine, I'll do it. No, it's not that. It's doing it with a cheerful heart as well. But there's occasions where I've noticed that I can be very quick to give a negative opinion on something. No, I don't like burgers. The last time we went to that place that you're talking about, it just wasn't good, and I'd rather not do that. And then the more negative I become, just it has a tendency to probably shut my wife down, to where the next time she's going to think long and hard about bringing up an opinion. And this doesn't happen. I don't want to give you the wrong perception and say that if she does it one time and then you negatively respond, that's it. Usually what happens is this something that occurs over time. Like the more and more that I do it, and once it gets to a certain point, then that's where it becomes a situation where she's probably not going to want to even bring it up, because she doesn't want to have to deal with the negativity and the disagreements. And so again, the point is, you can give your opinion, but maybe on a lot of occasions, maybe your opinion doesn't matter and you do something that your wife wants to do. So leading with humility. That's what Jesus did, really. I mean, yes, he was a very strong individual when he was here on earth, but at the same time, he was always humble and he always served others. A third tip is to communicate with wisdom. And what does that mean to me? Well, it means using kind and wise words when communicating with your spouse. So, avoiding harsh language, striving to build your wife up through positive and encouraging communication. And wisdom, I look at the definition of wisdom as being where we're gaining knowledge over our life experiences. So if you're a brand new husband, and you haven't been at this for very long, of course, wisdom is going to take some time. I would encourage you to go to somebody that you trust. I mean, if it's your father, perfect. If it's not, maybe it's somebody, a friend that's a little bit further along than you, a little bit more further along in life's journey. Maybe it's somebody from church. Maybe it's a respected pastor, elder, small group leader, something like that. Talk to them about how do they talk to their spouse? And if they do it right, or to the best that they can, then I'm sure that they're going to be kind with their wife. Harsh language, something we want to stay away from. I'll give you a quick example. So John Gottman, famous couples researcher, I've talked about him a few times on the podcast. He talks about something called contempt, and when contempt is present in a couple's conversations, it can lead faster to divorce than just about anything. And what is contempt? You might be asking. Contempt is really at the base of it. It's just showing complete disgust or disdain for your spouse. Some practical ways in which that's shown could be name calling. And sometimes people will say, well, Brian, I don't call my wife a blank. I just say stop acting like a blank. And what I would say to that is that's contempt. It doesn't matter that you're not really directly saying this to them. If you're even hinting at it, then it's contempt. And, I get it. I understand. Well, I shouldn't say I get it. I understand sometimes the reason that this happens. The reason that contempt sometimes spills out of our mouth is because we don't know what else to do. We don't know what else to say. It just seems like no matter what we say, what we try, what we do, it doesn't seem to work. It just seems like it inflames the situation more, causes our wives to shut down more. So at some point, let's call our wife a name. And of course, that doesn't work. And I think we all kind of know that, but it's in the heat of the moment when our emotions are out of control that will sometimes happen. So it's best if you can take a breath and recognize and realize what's happening. Look at the big picture. Think about, how much you love your spouse, knowing that giving them the benefit of the doubt. I'm hoping that they give you the benefit of the doubt. You do some things like that in those heated moments, then that contempt or that language won't come out like that. So again, using kind and wise words and not belittling words. There's another word, I don't know if it's still being used much, it's called mansplaining. It's where maybe our wife asks us, I don't know, how the TV works, and then we go on for 30 minutes about all the inner workings of the TV, and pretty soon our wife is probably feeling like they're an idiot, and we're somehow lecturing them on how television works. And so be careful with that too. That can also cause issues. I don't like it as a man. I don't like when another man kind of lectures me and tries to explain something to me and goes on and on a little bit too long about it. So it's certain that your wife's probably not going to like it either. So communicate with wisdom. That's number 3. Number 4 is provide and protect. This one I think a lot of us know all about, because that's sort of the cliched, I guess, responsibility of a man is to provide and protect. Provide being the breadwinner. And if you're listening to this and you are not working right now, you are not condemned, but I hope it's a conviction to recognize and realize the importance of working. But again, there's sometimes in life where it might be an illness, or maybe we got let go of at work because of some cutbacks, or maybe there was something that we did and we were kind of quote unquote fired. Maybe we voluntarily quit without having something lined up. I mean, there's lots of different reasons that we don't have a job. And so my point here is not to condemn you, but to recognize and realize that it is important to work, and that's what we are called to do as much as we can. I mean, I've had situations in my life, one specifically when I changed careers. I was not working for a couple of years, and that was by design. We had both agreed on that. We had talked it over, prayed about it, and we're good with it. So I left my corporate job to become a therapist, and it went a little bit longer than I had thought. I did not realize the the residency period, the internships, the amount of client hours that I needed to get before I got licensed. Didn't really contemplate all that, but hopefully, and I know Heather's not here to answer this question, hopefully I communicated that appropriately as we went along. I don't think, again, I realized that in the beginning, but providing, it's very important. Protecting is extremely important. There's a situation right now. It's just a terrible thing that's happened. My stepfather. He's legally not my stepfather any longer. He married my mother back in the, I guess, early 1990s. They were unfortunately only married for a year because my wife got, sorry, my mother got really sick and had an aneurysm, and she ended up passing away from it. And so he went on to marry another lady, sweet lady who they've been married for about 30 years. And unfortunately, he passed away really just a couple of months ago as I'm recording this episode. And so, he is no longer there to provide and protect. And I'm talking about protection now because she told me, she says, I don't know what my problem is, but I'm very scared to be on my own. So I'm having my son-in-law, it's my sister's husband, he came over and installed I think some deadbolts and maybe a security system. She says something, I think she got better curtains or maybe installed curtains. So she's just not feeling very safe right now. And it's because her husband is not around. So that's just an example to give you a little bit of a flavor for, again, how important it is as that we as men protect our wives. We want to be able to provide them an environment where they feel safe and cared for, because they are I mean, what is the physically, I guess, weaker of the two genders. Is that a good way to say it? I don't even know what's politically correct anymore to say, but I think in God's world, I think it's still okay that we say these things because we're different people. Men and women are different. Husband and wives are different, and so we have an obligation to, as much as we can, provide and protect for them. But again, if you're not able to do that right now, there's no condemnation. I mean, it could be a situation too where, I mean, maybe as a husband, maybe you're ill, or maybe you're in a wheelchair, or maybe you're not able to walk. I mean, I want to recognize that it might be physically difficult for you to sort of be Superman, so to speak, physically, and come to your wife's aid if something happens. But I'm sure in your own way, wherever you're at in life, wherever you find yourself, there's all kinds of different things that you can do to help provide and protect. And wanted to share with you 1 Timothy chapter 5 verse 8. It's a great verse on kind of this topic, and I will get to that in just a moment. It just says, anyone who does not provide for their relatives, and especially for their own household, has denied the faith and is worse than an unbeliever. So, ouch. Yeah. And again, I know there's a gray area. There's situations where this might not be happening, but if you can, if it's under your control and under your power, make sure that you are providing and protecting for your spouse. The last one I wanted to talk about is to always make sure that you are seeking unity and resolution. I love this one. My pastor and his wife gave us a talk yesterday at church where they were talking about, they've really done a whole series on marriage and family and relationships, and it's been a good one. And one of the things that one of them said, I think it was our pastor, he said that as far as it is with you, the husband, you are the one to be the initial one to go back and seek resolution to a situation, to seek reconciliation. A lot of times, in my experience with working with couples, typically the female or the wife is considered the pursuer in a relationship, meaning that she is the one that is wants to talk. Hey, we've got an issue, we've got a situation, let's figure this out, let's talk. Maybe brings it up several times, can get a little bit pushy, can probably start to nag a little bit, depending on where the situation goes. The male, we as men, generally, not always, it can be flipped, but we are typically known as withdrawers. What that means is that we will want to shut the conversation down. We've already argued about that before. That's already been brought up before. Why are we going back to it? There's no need to. If we just start to disagree, it's gonna end in a fight. What's the point of that? And to be fair and to be honest with you, I will say that both the pursuer and withdrawer, there's unhealthy ways that they act and there are healthy ways that they act. For a pursuer, the healthy thing is we get things out on the table, we talk about them, we figure them out. For a withdrawer, the healthy thing is we don't let things explode or escalate, and we try to keep it down as much as we can. The negative or unhealthy aspect of a pursuer, again, is the potential for nagging or telling your partner how to change or improve. The negative for a withdrawer is not dealing with situations and issues and always wanting to brush things under the rug. So the kind of the point I'm getting back to is that as the male, I want you to get out of that withdrawal mode, and when subjects and situations come up, try to do your best to engage in the conversation and not shut it down. And then if things go haywire and they don't go well, I want you to be the first one to go back to your wife. And let's just say you in your heart feel like there's nothing you need to apologize for. Well, I would challenge you on that. I'm sure there's probably something. Maybe it's not about the issue that you disagreed upon, but maybe it's about the way in which you went about disagreeing. So, for example, go back to your wife. You know what? When I raise my voice, or when I shut down, or when I, just turned away from you, I am sorry for that. And, I apologize. Will you forgive me for that? That could be very important. And you don't know how much that might open the gate for your wife to do the same thing. Now, there's a chance she might not. You might think in your mind you're 98% responsible for this thing that happened. You apologize for your 2%. She does nothing. That's not easy. And I'd be lying to you if I said it was, because it's not. I would encourage you, just move forward with your apology and put a period on it, end of it. Don't say anything about the 98% that she's responsible for. Now, I get it. If year after year goes by and you never hear an apology from her, then that might be something you need to address and might want to ask, why don't you ever apologize for anything? But again, that's delicate. That's a little touchy. I get it. So be careful with that one. But sometimes we have to have tough conversations. But seeking unity, resolution, again, resolution is all about you being the one to move forward. Unity is just looking for compromise, I would say. There's several different ways you can do that. You can compromise by agreeing to disagree, but don't do it with resentment. You can say, hey, let's do it your way this time. We'll see how it works. And if it doesn't work, can we do it my way next time? Or how about I'll give a little and you'll give a little? Or let's just talk it through. Hey, I still see we disagree, but you know what? The more we communicate about it, I can see I actually changed my mind. I like what you're saying. So there's all kinds of different ways to come to a compromise. If it gets so bad and you need third party help, like a trusted friend or maybe a marriage mentor that you maybe have available at your church, or maybe it's professional counseling, any of those areas to help get just a third party to be able to give a little bit more of a non-biased look at the situation can be very helpful. So those are the 5 ways in which I want you as a husband to be a better husband, and I'm sure you've got some ways in which that you believe maybe even work better than this. And what I would love for you to do is I would love for you to email me. Tell me about that. Email me at Brian, Brian, at lovehowdeep.com, and let me know what works for you. And if you've got a situation or an issue in your relationship that is causing disconnection, and there's maybe been a hurt or a betrayal or a very difficult argument, we Heather and I have done an online course. It's called The Power of Forgiveness, and I am going to put that in the show notes. I'm also going to put a link to a discount code, and you can get the entire online course for $97, and it's got, I think we've got 14 videos or 6 modules. There's lots of worksheets to work through together, and it will help you each have conversations about forgiveness so that you can get back to the kind of relationship that you really want, which is one that where there's connection and where there's agreement and love and unity. And with that, I will go ahead and close us down. I thank you so much for listening. Thank you for listening to just me, and might be doing one of these with Heather solely as well to talk to the wives. I think that might be what we do next. But until next time, thank you so much for listening, and I will see you next time.